This grieving woman is Louisa Cutton, who addressed her words to the relatives of her best friend, Alexa Canam. Without a doubt, as she highlighted, what transpired can only be described as a tragedy. This was a case that profoundly shook the community of Radford, Virginia, to its very foundations. We invite you to stay with us until the end of the video to understand how the bond between two girls, who were almost like sisters and even shared a home, ended in a chilling crime. Alexa Canam was born on July 17, 1998, in Oak, Virginia, United States. She was the firstborn of Katie and Sam Canam, who later welcomed two more daughters, Em and Chloe. The eldest of the sisters, Alexa, was a very cheerful and friendly girl who was always smiling and finding the bright side of life, even in the face of difficulties. Her special disposition and determination to overcome obstacles were evident during her teenage years when she began to suffer from seizures and was diagnosed with epilepsy. Her unpredictable seizures sometimes occurred while she was in class, making school a challenge as some students teased her about her condition. Nevertheless, Alexa managed to cope and did not allow her health disorder to hinder her enjoyment of life or her pursuit of dreams. Passionate about art and photography, and with a love for animals, Alexa achieved one of her goals by graduating from Patrick Henry High School in 2016. That same year, she set out to fulfill another dream, obtaining a college degree. To achieve this, she enrolled in the University of Radford, approximately 50 minutes away from her hometown. During her first year at the university, she met Louisa Ines Tudela Harris Cutton, commonly known as Louisa Cutton. Before moving to Radford to study, Louisa lived in Jeffersonton, a town in Culper County, also in Virginia. It appears she had roots in Texas, but little else is known about her life. None of the media consulted during our research provided information about her family or childhood. The two young women lived across the street from each other and were neighbors for about a year, during which they developed a close friendship. During that year, the two became close friends and were quite active on their social media platforms. They often posted comments about their friendship, exchanged affectionate messages, and engaged in various activities together, including a vacation to Mexico in the summer of 2017. According to a post from March 2018 by Alexa, Louisa was like a mother to her during their trip to Cancun the previous year. Alexa expressed amazement at Louisa's support and announced that they would soon be moving in together, humorously asking her friends to pray that they wouldn't kill each other, a message that now seems chilling in retrospect. In June 2018, Alexa returned to Cancun for what she described as the most incredible and thrilling adventure of her life. Although Louisa had previously visited the resort, Alexa chose to take her along, knowing how much she wanted to see it. This act highlighted Louisa's dedication as a friend, and Alexa reiterated that they would soon become roommates. In the latter half of 2018, they began sharing a residence in an off-campus apartment complex on Clem Street. Louisa became president of the institution's Latino Student Alliance in July 2018, an achievement Alexa celebrated in a social media post, praising her friend's success and expressing her excitement about it. Louisa was known for her empathy and lack of envy, always supporting others and prioritizing their needs over her own. Her enthusiasm for helping others was evident in her active involvement with her local educational community and church. She traveled twice as a missionary to the Dominican Republic with her congregation and was planning a trip to Spain to practice her Spanish. Everything appeared to be going well between the two friends, who openly showed their affection through their posts. However, in January 2019, their social media messages took on a different tone, which, in light of the forthcoming events, might suggest emerging issues in their coexistence. Louisa began to post jokes about drug use and some dark reflections. On January 10th, she wrote about her awareness of impending death, but struggled to comprehend it. A couple of days later, she remarked on a missed gas bill, which would result in no heat during an anticipated snowstorm, adding that she would fortunately be drunk all day. Later, on January 20th, Alexa made an unusual post announcing that she had stopped venting and had started praying, as she felt she needed strength rather than empathy. Louisa shared another post in which she mentioned that her dreams were becoming increasingly bizarre. These comments were followed by a tragedy that no one had anticipated and that profoundly shocked the entire Radford community. On Thursday, January 24th, 2019, at approximately 7:45 a.m., the police received multiple 911 calls reporting an incident at the apartment where Alexa and Louisa lived. The neighbors who contacted emergency services reported hearing an argument and shouting coming from the apartment. One of the operators heard a woman screaming and mentioning a knife during one of the calls. When the officers arrived at the address on Clement Street, they were greeted by Louisa, who was covered in blood. Upon seeing the officers, Louisa turned around, placed her hands behind her back, and requested to be arrested immediately. The officers entered the apartment and discovered Alexa lying motionless on the floor with multiple stab wounds. The scene was horrifying, with the weapon used still visible near her. Alexa, 20 years old, was later identified as the victim. When asked what had happened, Louisa claimed that she had taken her partner's life. The paramedics who arrived at the scene declared Alexa deceased. Louisa, 21 years old, was arrested and taken to the police headquarters, where she underwent a thorough interrogation. During questioning, she admitted to consuming marijuana, mushrooms, alcohol, a stimulant drug, and another substance commonly used recreationally by some young people. Louisa was erratic during the interrogation, speaking of the apocalypse, repeatedly reciting the Hail Mary in Spanish, and attempting to put her fist in her mouth. Due to her erratic behavior, she was taken to a mental health clinic, where specialists recommended a week-long stay. As a result, the first hearing scheduled for January 25, 2019, the day after the crime, had to be postponed. During a search of the apartment, investigators found pills and narcotic paraphernalia in Louisa's room. Just hours after the incident, Lieutenant Andy Wilbur from the Radford Police Department's Administrative Services Office issued an official statement. He expressed that the event was deeply shocking to both the university community and the general public. He noted that such crimes had not occurred in the area for years and emphasized the unusual nature of a woman attacking another woman with a knife in such a manner. Wilder, the public information officer for the city of Radford, stated that this was the first crime against life to occur in the town in 3 years. She assured that the police were investigating thoroughly and doing everything possible to keep the community safe. The town, with a population of about 17,000 people, was initially left in shock. In the early reports circulating about the incident, the identity of the victim was not disclosed as the police aimed to notify the victim's next of kin first. The university confirmed that the woman who had been assaulted was one of their students and that the incident took place off campus. The Radford University Police Department issued a statement to not only inform but also to reassure the student population, which was deeply unsettled by the news. They emphasized that the crime was an isolated incident and posed no immediate threat to the campus or the broader community. Bereavement counselors were made available to provide support in light of the tragic loss of one of their students. The reactions from the student body were immediate. Kayla Colsan noted that it was particularly difficult for the community members, as they considered themselves part of a close-knit Radford family. Robert Patine, another student, mentioned that everyone living on campus was in a state of prayer. Soon after, the police released the victim's identity and confirmed that Alexa and Louisa were roommates. The investigation into the motive behind the brutal attack was underway. In an email to the university community, President Brian Henfield described the attack on Alexa as unforgivable and heinous, acknowledging that she was a highly involved student who had made a significant impact on those around her. The university reported that Louisa was on interim suspension, but did not specify whether this measure was enacted as a consequence of the crime or if it was part of a disciplinary procedure. Disciplinary proceedings had been imposed on Louisa prior to the dramatic events of the crime. Shelton Lewis, a third-year student who knew both girls, expressed his shock upon hearing about the incident. He was particularly eager to understand the motive behind the crime, as Alexa and Louisa had been best friends since 2016. Shelton lamented that he had hoped they would all graduate together, as they were nearing the end of their academic journey. The same week, Pastor George Anderson of the Second Presbyterian Church in Raleigh, where the Cannon family was a member, gave an interview. He described Alexa as a wonderful girl with a great spirit. In honor of her memory, several ceremonies and vigils were held. On January 26th, her family and friends gathered at the church, where they shared their memories of Alexa and lit candles to honor her light, affirming that she continued to shine for all present. A memorial service was held at the church on Wednesday, January 30th. Alexa's sisters, Em and Chloe, invited attendees to make donations to either the church's youth mission or the National Canine Cancer Foundation instead of bringing flowers. The day also featured a vigil at the university's Student Wellness and Recreation Center, where hundreds of people gathered. Several speakers, including Alexa's teacher, Barfi, spoke about her joy and the qualities that made her special. After spending the initial days of her detention at a mental health center, Louisa was transferred to the New River Valley Regional Jail, where she was held without bail on a charge of second-degree murder. The preliminary autopsy report revealed that Alexa had suffered more than 30 stab wounds and died from the injuries to her torso. Police documents indicated that Alexa's phone was found under her left hand and that she had attempted to call 911 during the assault by the person she considered her best friend. In contrast, Louisa's phone was not found at the scene. A hearing scheduled for June 13th, where Louisa was to hear the charges against her, was postponed, following a similar suspension that occurred in January. It was also suspended at that time, and it was learned that the young woman would be represented by Blair Howard, a lawyer known for defending Lorena Bobbitt, who in 1993 mutilated her husband and was acquitted, spending 45 days in a psychiatric facility. The selection of this lawyer was interpreted in reviews as a clear indication that they would attempt to allege mental health issues to diminish Louisa's criminal liability. Louisa appeared for the first time before the court on September 5th, almost 8 months after the events, and the impact of her image in prison clothes and handcuffs was significant. The last time she had been seen in public was on January 24th, when the police escorted her out of the apartment where she lived and placed her in the back of a patrol car to take her to the police station. During her arraignment, which lasted only 15 minutes, the defendant waived her right to a preliminary hearing, and a grand jury would decide whether she would be tried in circuit court. Her lawyer explained that the team of attorneys assisting her had carefully reviewed the evidence and believed there was sufficient probable cause to believe Louisa was involved in Alexa's tragic death. He also stated that his client's mental health issues would be addressed at the appropriate time, though he did not disclose whether she had been evaluated by mental health experts. In the following days, there were intense negotiations between Louisa's defense and the prosecution until they finally reached a plea agreement in exchange for some procedural benefits. Consequently, on October 7, 2019, the young woman pleaded guilty to the second-degree murder of Alexa. During the hearing, the defendant stood up and took out a piece of paper folded in the pocket of her prison uniform, and with a broken voice read a handwritten statement in which she accepted her responsibility, apologized, and thanked her parents and friends for standing by her side. Louisa admitted to attacking her best friend to the point of killing her, though the motive never became clear. Prosecutor Chris Rack took the court through the events leading up to and following Alexa's death, recalling that the defendant had confessed to officers that the night before the crime she had used many drugs, including cocaine, marijuana, mushrooms, along with anti-anxiety medication and stimulants. Louisa had been sleepless for several days prior to the attack and exhibited erratic behavior. According to the prosecutor, these factors combined to trigger a psychotic episode. The courtroom also heard that after her arrest and during interrogation, Louisa experienced alternating moments of lucidity and incoherence. She reported that she could not remember certain details of the crime or the hours leading up to it. She was sentenced to 40 years in prison for the second-degree murder of Alexa Cannon. Judge Joey Walter ruled that after serving the first 20 years, the remaining 20 years could be suspended, but Louisa would have to undergo 10 years of mandatory active supervised probation. As part of the agreement negotiated between the prosecution and the defense, Louisa was also ordered to undergo mental health treatment and to pay nearly $4,000 in restitution to the Virginia Victims Fund. Additionally, the judgment prohibited Louisa from approaching the Cannon family. In a statement released after the sentencing, the prosecutor for Radford City described the case as extraordinarily unusual. They added that the guilty plea had concluded the criminal proceedings surrounding this tragic and mysterious event. The prosecutor expressed it had been a privilege to work with Alexa's family, who, despite their pain, provided a thoughtful perspective that facilitated the settlement. The settlement secured a murder conviction that avoided any appeals and spared Alexa's relatives and friends the anguish of a trial. The prosecutor detailed that if the case had gone to trial, evidence would have included 911 calls, body camera footage, photographs, and the defendant's confession. The sentence was consistent with the facts and was deemed just by the prosecution. The 20-year sentence was at the upper end of the sentencing guidelines for second-degree murder. Defense counsel confirmed that the sentence was aligned with the facts and that justice had been served. The defense attorney also noted that Louisa had a history of drug abuse, which contributed to her psychotic episode. The lawyer emphasized that Louisa had accepted responsibility for her actions, received help, and remained sober after the crime. Despite her untimely passing, Alexa left an indelible mark on many people. In 2024, 5 years after her death, the Second Presbyterian Church of Raleigh named a mission center in her honor to provide shelter and hope to needy families. Alexa House, designed with elements reflecting her love of art and photography, is a way of perpetuating her legacy. On May 12, 2024, coinciding with Mother's Day in the United States, a service was held at the Second Presbyterian Church to honor Alexa and the dedication of the new mission center. Alexa's mother, Katie Canham, shared heartfelt words about her daughter, expressing how much it meant to her family that her daughter's spirit remained present through the lives she touched. The devastating attack committed by Louisa against her friend and companion was a profound tragedy for Alexa's family and friends, as well as for the community. The impact of this event not only shocked those who knew the young women, but also left many searching for answers that never came, as the circumstances surrounding the incident remain inexplicable. The senseless act of violence committed by Louisa serves as a stark reminder of the dangers associated with substance abuse and mental health crises. It also highlights the urgent need for effective measures and systems to prevent such tragedies from occurring in the future. Dear audience, this concludes another investigation. We would love to hear your thoughts on today's case, as your opinions are important to us. Please remember to express your comments with the utmost respect for both the victim and fellow viewers. If you haven't already, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who might be interested. We'll see you in the next criminal investigation. Goodbye.